Thanks, fellas, for joining. Thank you, our attendees. We're going to have a conversation about our international spirits competition and all different facets of that. We appreciate you being here with us. Real quickly, before we jump into the discussion, I wanted to remind everybody of a couple things. Number one, um, and Eric's going to talk about the member benefits inside of the context of the competition for discounts that you receive for being a member. Irrespective of that, we'd love you to be part of our community officially. So I've put in your resources tab at the bottom there, I've put the link for joining ADI as a DSP member. It's $350 a year, if you didn't know. Also in that link, as we continue to talk about the competition, is the registry link for the ADI International Spirits Competition. It is live, those registrations, with early bird pricing. And if just so that you have that resource and want to jump on and go ahead and do that and take advantage of that early bird, you're welcome to do that. So Eric and David, why don't you introduce yourselves a little bit and talk about how you got here and involved in the competition, and then we'll talk about the ISC in general.
Yeah. So I'm Eric Zandona. I'm the director of ADI's International Spirits Competition. I have been serving in this role now since 2017, the 2017 competition, I believe. And before that, I was basically working in the behind the scenes in the back room, helping with registration and organizing and doing all that stuff for the previous director. And I started with the competition in 2014. So when I first met David, we had our competition that year in Seattle. And it's been great to see the competition grow, and we're now based every year in the San Francisco Bay Area. So all of the entries get shipped to California, and we do everything out of the Bay Area. But yeah, so I've been with the competition now for 11 years total, going on 12. So it's been great.
Hi, I'm David T. Smith. I am the lead steward for the competition. Essentially, it's my job to make sure that the spirits get sent out in the right order, the right things are in the right glasses, and that what the judges get to taste, gets tasted properly and smoothly, and all the scores. So we get, keep all the information and all that kind of stuff. I initially started as a judge for ADI competition in 2013, and then moved on to have more of this backstage role. But I continue to do a lot of judging for other competitions internationally in the UK and South Africa and various places like that. And I'm just a general spirits writer and enthusiast, and help people with different projects and stuff. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But this is always a nice sort of big project around March, and we've definitely seen it grow. And also, each year we just slightly refine it a little bit more, which is great, and I think that shows, with the quality of what we're getting in and how much people enjoy it. And actually, I will say, in those however many years it has been since I've been there, the quality of how much the spirits have improved as well. I mean, like, from where we were 10 years ago to where we are today is quite incredible. So that's a big thanks to you, these people watching, and those people that enter, the distillers, the people that make the stuff. We couldn't do this without you.
So let's just jump right in. For those who may be new to your industry, just getting started, or maybe just got something in glass this week, why are spirits competitions in general, and particularly ours, important and useful for brands, whether they're brand new, as I just said, or whether they're established? Like, what are the high notes for competitions in general?
Well, I would say the general sort of approach that a lot of distillers take towards competitions is that they're a key part of their annual marketing budgets. So it's how a lot of people um, invest relatively small amount of money and resources with that can potentially reap much larger benefits in terms of the marketing attention that you can get on the back end based on your award. So that's primarily why competitions sort of exist in general. Though with ADI, we took a slightly different approach. Yes, we wanted to, when the competition was founded in 2007, we wanted to highlight and promote people who are making excellent spirits. But we also were really dedicated to this idea that we wanted to help the industry grow and improve. And because of that, we've always had written feedback as a core feature of our competition. So most competitions, you'll get a score or medal or maybe no medal, depending on how well your product does. Um, but with ADI, you will get those things as well that you can then use in your marketing. But we also provide written feedback from our judges so that you then can hear from somebody who's tasted your spirit totally blind what they think about in terms of quality, what they like about it, what they think could be improved possibly. And with that, we have seen brands enter year again and again that have drastically improved in their quality and have gone from bronze medal to, trophy winning spirit in just a couple of years. And so we're, really proud that we can provide that. And that's always been a core feature of what we want to do. And so that's, I think that's one of the reasons why people enter ours in particular. But in general, it's because people want to get attention. It's a dense market, as you know. There are thousands and thousands of SKUs on the shelves, and ultimately consumers respond to awards when in a low information environment. If you're looking at a retail shelf with lots of options, more than not, consumers will go for the one that if they know nothing about any of them, they will pick the one that has an award listed on it. And so um, the reality is that the awards do help move bottles. So that's, I would say, why people choose to enter in general.
Yeah, just following up from that, I think um, we and different competitions provide different things, and that's kind of when you're thinking about where you're spending your money, you've got to decide where's the right place for you. But one of the things that we're very keen on, and as Eric said, we've seen is, let's say you've entered a competition and you've got a bronze or you've got a silver or something like that. You might think, okay, so I've got a bronze, but how do I make it a silver? How do I make it a gold? Like, what's the next step that I want to do? And that's something that over the many years, and that's a combination of the system that we use and also the judges that we have and we have on a recurring basis are people that can provide a good note. So we will have a mix of different people from different backgrounds. Some will be maybe more in the sort of consultancy kind of side. Some will be distillers. Some will be bartenders and writers, and some will be, and then a chunk will be from that are involved in the actual selling of products, whether that's retail or whatever that might be. And they all have a slightly different take on it, and so you get a little different viewpoint of things. And hopefully that does give you what you can do to improve it. Certainly, when I'm judging, I often judge gin, and there might be certain things in there where I might say, oh, actually, maybe if it's a sweeter product, maybe there's an issue with the sweetness, or maybe this botanical needs up or down, or something like that. And that's like a little tidbit of information that I can provide where you can go away, make that adjustment, and then hopefully resubmit it the next year, and you might go up that level. But that's definitely something that we really do go on on to our judges about how important it is. And I think that is the thing. It's not just, oh, let's just do notes, let's do tasting notes. You mean, you can get people to write your tasting notes. You guys can write your own tasting notes if you needed to. But it's more about like what's going to be useful. for you, and that's something that we really let our judges know about. And because they know that there's a good reason for it, it's not just, oh, I'm writing these notes, no one's going to read them. They know that there's a reason. I think that's why we get such good feedback, and then subsequently such a good result from it.
What I've when we talk about feedback, and I think about this, and I spoke to a member in San Antonio about it when we were talking about the awards. I think the other thing too to remember is that, and this happened to us at Smooth Ambler with things that we specifically submitted to ADI's competition, is that sometimes that feedback affirms an item that you think is a winner and you think is great, and obviously having that independent affirmation is good. We found we submitted a gin one time that we was sort of a we had gin and we had bourbon barrels, and we thought, well, what the hell, we'll put some in there. And the other thing too is it might identify something in your portfolio that you thought was just sort of a secondhand whatever kind of item, and then all of a sudden you win an award with it and you get this beautiful feedback, and it's like, well, I don't know, maybe we should push that towards the front of of our portfolio or our family of expressions, where we thought it was just kind of a. So it's funny how the feedback can work both ways.
It's
And
quite funny
again,
because I remember the product as well.
perfect. I still have people calling me wanting, have you got any of that left? And listen, as on the side, I can just tell you, if you make really beautiful gin in West Virginia, you too can sell 36 packs a year. Love the gin, couldn't get anybody to buy it. But so let's talk about, in addition to the feedback and the marketing benefits of it, is there a credibility stamp of approval, in general, that comes along with participating in the awards and getting high marks from an awards competition?
Yeah. So to me, like, this is a bit complicated in my own mind, partly because, like I said, on the consumer side, I don't know that there's a lot of information in terms of differentiating competitions. There are some that they will hear more about than others, but it's hard for me to kind of parse out like how consumers value an award from X competition versus ADI versus some other. But I do know that one of the things that we have done over the years is really try to be completely transparent with our process, how we do things, why we do things. I am easily reachable by phone and by email. When people have questions, they can contact me and I can discuss like what our process was. For if people had a question like, well, why did I get this? So I can walk them through what our process was and how it got to that result. And so for us, we really try to emphasize like an award from us, whether it's a bronze, a silver, a gold, double gold, like this was a lot of time and attention and care was really put into the process. And so the award really has a value to it. And that you can then use in your marketing and your promotion of your spirits. So, I think part of the value that our awards can have in the market is also in part based on how producers then use them. So if you earn a double gold medal from us, but then you never talk about it, like then it doesn't do you a whole lot of good. So I think there are sort of multiple layers going on. I would say for our competition, there are a number of others that I judge with too, that I would say are sort of at a top tier in terms of general like transparency of how they do things and quality of their process. So you can be fairly confident that the result you get out of that is really valid and can be really effective to use. As we've seen over the last 5 years in particular, there's been a real growth in spirits competitions, in part because a lot of companies have realized that, they can make money off of them. And like I said, ADI, we've run our competition since 2007. We do obviously make money off of entries, but like part of the key motivation for us creating the competition was to really be engaged with the industry, to help the industry grow, and to provide that extra level of service and feedback to our entrants, as well as helping in the promotion. And so, as a producer, as a distiller, as a brand, you need to kind of weigh these things. And my sort of like key metric is, if you can't get a hold of anybody at the competition, or they're not willing to answer your questions about their process, then it's not, I wouldn't spend my money with them.
Mm-hmm.
I might just jump in on something that Eric had said there, because I know, like, we were talking about, like, how can you make the best of, your medals and this kind of thing, and actually, it is all about what you do, even sometimes more than exactly the medal that you got, for example. And if you get a double gold, if you get a trophy and you don't tell anyone about it, then it's nice and it's good for it's good for the team and everything. But like, you need to you need to leverage what you've got locally. And I think, as smaller, distillers, that local market is really, really important. And so, to give an example, there was a local radio station. So I'm in the UK, just in case anyone hadn't realized. But so there's a local radio station. They happened a rum distillery. I'd never heard of this rum distillery. Had won a bronze medal for one of their products. They had one product, got a bronze. That got them on the local radio. Then I heard about them, and then you get chatted. Eric and I, we went there last year, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
um, so from one little thing, from one chance encounter, and there are different radio stations and there are different newspapers and things like that, and a lot of them are looking for content. So actually, a local story is great, and there will be some people that may not have heard of you and not heard of your distillery, and they might be in your town or in your county or state or whatever, and they might never have heard of you, and they might be potential customers. So this is a really good, rather than just saying, "Oh, by the way, we've got a distillery, blah blah blah." The story is, we entered this international competition and we won this. There are all these experts from around the world judging it against some of the best stuff, and we did well. We got this, and then from there, that's just a great way of getting your story out there. And if it's from newspaper point of view, even if it's for the website, have some text done, get some quotes from the distiller, from the owner, whatever. Get some pictures done, send them as much as possible in the press release, so that most of the work is done for them, and you're more likely to get them to do something for you, to post it on the website or put it in the paper or whatever the thing might be. Invite them down. Use it as an opportunity to tell people about you and get them to find out that you exist. That's a great starting point.
Mm-hmm. The Either a lot or a little, most everybody has their brand involved in some direct to consumer sales avenue. But for people who are already heavily involved, or it's part of their mission to go the more traditional distribution route, before a consumer can pick it up and see that it has an award on it, you got to get a distributor to put it in their warehouse and get it to that retailer in the first place. So I guess I'd like to hear you talk about how awards can help with that, and how do we specifically sort of address that at ADI's ISE to try and give a winner the tools to leverage that with distributors that they're already have relationships with, and maybe even some new ones.
Yeah, so I would say that, for many years, ADI's competition in particular kind of struggled with getting those connections into the world of distribution, in part because a lot of the brands that and distillers that chose to enter our competition were smaller craft producers, regional distillers, smaller spirit brands. And so it was sort of this weird, sort of interesting kind of cycle of like we had smaller producers entering, and so the distributors didn't really know about us. Whereas, like, say, a competition like San Francisco has a lot of like the Diageos and Beams and make good stuff, but because they were these bigger companies that spent a lot of money on marketing, the distributors paid attention to them more. And so, but over the years, in part because of our members, and I would say this as a quick plug for ADI membership, like the members of ADI helped the industry itself grow, right? It was one of ADI's members that really helped us crack open this door in terms of getting ADI's competition in front of national retailers and distributors. And since then, doors have continued to open and relationships have been continued to be built so that now we can go to a distributor and say, hey, we have this list of trophy winners from our competition. Would you like to meet and talk with them? And more than often than not, they say yes. And so then we are able to introduce our trophy level winners directly to retailers at, say, Binny's or Total Wine or K&L Wines in California, or and also do that with distributors. For us, we really had to kind of go around the distributors initially and focus on the retail side, because once the retailers were like, yeah, we really like the spirit, it's really interesting, it fills a unique niche for us, we want it, then the distributors started listening to AEI and started taking our meetings with our winners more seriously, because they're like, oh, well, if the retailers want to sell it, then we'll cooperate. So that's how we were able to kind of like open those doors over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And like I said, it all started because ADI members, were passionate about not just their own success, but helping others in the industry succeed as well. And so we've then multiplied that through across our winners for multiple years.
And I know, like, I was trying to think of some people that have had really great success with that. One being Mermaid Gin from
Mm-hmm.
the so no, they weren't even in the US, but they've come over from the UK with Total Wine, and I know the guys there, they're always over here now, supporting it and everything. And Herno from Sweden as well. They're just two I know, but there are
Yeah.
more. Um, but speaking to them. And those people, they enter quite a lot of competitions. I mean, Herno, I think, is probably one of the most awarded gin distilleries in the world, I would think. Partly because, to be fair, they do enter a chunk of stuff, but you've got to enter. You can't win if you don't enter. Um, uh, but both of them have. That I went from speaking to them. They found the introductions really helpful and has been a key part of getting them into the US. So if your stuff's already here, even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So going back, it seems like a good time to bring this up because you were talking about membership. Tell us about the discounts and other member benefits, if there's something beyond discounts that an ADI DSP member enjoys versus somebody that just sends their spirits in.
Yeah. So ADI members get a discounted entry into our spirits competition, but it's more than that. I mean, so there's a giant chunk of resources that come along with ADI membership. So in addition to discounted spirits entries, there's also discounts for the conference attendance. There's an entire giant library of video content from past conferences that have incredible topics ranging from sales to marketing to production to blending to maturation, all of this stuff that is an incredible resource, especially for your employees. If you want your team to really level up and really be engaged with the business and to grow, technically in your team, whether it's on the sales side or it's on the production side, like the ADI video library is an incredible resource that they can just dive into and just soak up years upon years of knowledge and expertise from people. So and then obviously there's the magazine and the resource directory, and all of that gets wrapped up into ADI membership. So to me, the membership is currently what, $350 a year. You get an incredible value out of that. And especially, like, you consider if you enter 3, maybe 4 entries into the ADI competition, it basically covers the discount that you get from entering, basically covers the cost of the membership. And then you get all of that other stuff for free on top of it. And so it's relatively inexpensive, but you get a lot out of it. And so that's always what I talk to people about, is that there's so much available. And then part of it is, again, I would say, just being part of this community is really committed to seeing the industry at large thrive and flourish. There are obviously always the big players who are going to do what's in their own best interest and try and tilt the field in their direction. But I've always been really excited to see how collaborative spirits distilleries are, and how willing people are to kind of share knowledge and information. Because I think especially at the small and medium scale, like, if the ground is even enough for you to succeed at that level and to play, then there's going to be enough for you and your neighbor in the next county or in the next site in the next state. So I think that's one of the great parts of membership, is that you are part of the ADI environment community, but then you get a ton for it, for the dollar.
Obviously, I would completely agree with you, and I preach the same thing all the time. I mean, hell, I tell people, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you know how expensive agencies are these days, but you get $350 worth of free advice from the first webinar that you attend, on top of all of the other discounts and the other things. And I couldn't agree with you more, that the community is one of the biggest parts of it, especially, I feel like after you onboard and you do some of these things and you get going, that sense of community is really important. And also being sort of seen as a leader, and this ties back to the competition, being seen as a leader in our industry amongst your peers, whether that involves speaking at the conference, or running up there and grabbing that award during the award ceremony. I mean, that I think you can't undervalue how that can help a brand with visibility amongst the peers in the industry. So, talking about the awards, what assets do we provide winners so that they can leverage those awards in their marketing and packaging and advertising and promotion? It's one thing to talk about it, but what do we give them to help trumpet those wins?
Yeah, so for us, we provide both digital and physical assets for all winners. So on the physical side, if you win bronze medal, silver, gold, whatever it is, we will send you for free a physical copy of that award. So if you won 4 silver medals for 4 different products, we will send you those silver medals. And in general, I would say most of the medals, the physical medals that end up going out to people, often are usually placed in tasting rooms, and they really serve as a kind of a visual representation for your guests, and for your people coming on tours and things like that. Like, there's, okay, this isn't just some fly-by-night place that nobody's ever heard. I've never heard of it. I'm just visiting for the first time. But like, they got this bottle draped with hardware around it, so somebody must think pretty highly of it. So, okay, that makes me feel a little bit more confident about what I'm about to experience. So a lot of that gets done there. The other thing that I've seen people do with them is that they will take the physical metals, and then when they do off-site tasting events, whether it's like a whiskey show or a gin tasting or it's an in-store tasting or whatever it might be, they will take the metals with them, have them draped on the bottles, so that as people are coming up, they're just not like, oh, again, it's not just here's some random gin I've never heard of, or here's some, bourbon cream that I've never heard of, but oh, it's a bourbon cream with this big shiny gold medal on it. Let me go see what that's all about. And so that's how people kind of use the physical assets generally. Um, and with the digital ones, most often, so with the digital awards, we provide copies in multiple formats that are both ready for online use or ready for print and ready to be sent to printers for stickers. So a lot of competitions will sell stickers as part of their revenue stream. For us, the logistics of selling paper and stickers and mailing them out never made sense to ADI. So we've never really been in that business. So we just provide you the ready-made asset. So you can go to a local printer if you want to put bottle stickers on, if you want to make a hang tag to put around your bottle, it's ready in the digital format your designer needs to put it in and put your text around it and make it happen. And so we do that in advance. So rather than you don't have to come back to us and say, oh, do you have this file in this different format and these specs? And we just provide it all ready for you to go. So it all comes in a little, digital bundle of stuff that's ready for you. So you can either put it on an Instagram post or put it on your website, or it can be sent to a printer and made into stickers physical stickers you can put on your bottles. So all of that's ready to go once you receive your awards.
Cool. Without throwing other competitions under the bus, we talked about the feedback. Why don't you run down, ways in which our competition is either unique or uniquely authentic, or ways in which, because I know there are a couple of ways that we strive to really have maximum credibility and authenticity to from the beginning to the end of the competition. So delve into that a little bit, I think.
So shall I take this, Eric? Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
And then I have thoughts too. So
Okay. Really?
I thought you both might, which is why I brought it up.
Yeah.
So I mean, so one of the as I said, I do the judging side for a lot of different awards as well. One of the big things that sets the ADI apart, because we just do it this one period of time, and we'll talk about. I think it'd be helpful to talk about the sort of what that looks like when we're judging, because it just gives you a little insight into that. But all of our stewards are experts in their field. So the person that's looking after the gin is an expert in gin. People that are looking after the whiskies, the same. Um, and these are people that most of them have judged for ADI previously, so they know, they have that knowledge of what the judges are looking for, and that having that double knowledge is very beneficial, I find.
Real quickly, let me interrupt you, David, for anybody on here who doesn't understand the difference between a steward and a judge.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the judge, they're the people that they get the glasses. It's absolutely blind, so they have no idea what it is. They'll, if it's, an old Tom gins or Navy gins or, overproof rum or something like that, they'll know that, but that's it. So the judges are the ones that taste and score and write the notes, and then the stewards are the people that are in. There's a back room, a prep room, if you like, and they are the people that arrange the samples into different flights. So they're like a series of different samples of spirits that you taste, and they make sure that like the order and that is correct, so that you don't have anything that might be a bit of a stronger flavor impacting an earlier spirit. So, you might have something that's all in the same category, but if maybe a whiskey's got a bit of smoke or something to it, you might put that a little bit later on so that it doesn't impact any lighter profiles beforehand. So stewards are responsible for sorting and pouring the samples, and the judges are responsible for tasting and critiquing, analyzing the samples. That's the
And what you were talking about is that the stewards at our competition are industry professionals as
yeah,
opposed to just hired guns that, hey, here's 12 cases of gin.
yeah.
You take it away. But
Yeah,
that's where
exactly.
you
I
were.
mean,
That's where you were headed.
and I mean, all competitions will have some people with some element of knowledge. Sometimes they rely more heavily on the judges or not. Different competitions run in different ways, and I'm involved in a number of different ones that do it in a lot of different ways. It's not, but just so that people know, this is, I think, really the only one that has the stewards have all of that technical knowledge, and they could be there judging, if they were the other side of the wall, as it were. And what I think why that's important is I think that helps them make sure that every single sample that comes through, and gets judged is judged as fairly as it possibly can do. It's always my sort of mantra is I want to make sure every single spirit gets a fair shake. And we'll double check things and we'll have a look through. We have a monitoring system, so if we feel like maybe, you know, the scores might not have, might not quite be, what you might expect, or we might think, oh, there's a bit too much disparity here. Let's just get a second opinion. We have a process in part to do that. Again, just to make sure, the second opinion is the same, then that's fine. But we just want to make sure that, judges get the information that they need without obviously identifying what the product is. Um, and yeah, and that they're in the sort of right, looking at it in the right way when it's getting judged, and that works very well. And so some things get reviewed, but that's just a sort of belt and braces approach to make sure that everything gets judged as fairly as possible. So that's kind of that bit. And then in terms of like how the judging kind of works, the spirits will arrive at our location, usually on a Thursday, and then we'll start the unpacking. We'll start the sorting and the checking off and all this kind of thing, and then we'll build up an order that makes sense. And that also is part of, um, the order in which the judges will judge things through the day. For example, you start the day with vodka, you finish a session with absinthe. You don't want to be judging absinthe and then judging whiskey. It's not going to work. So there's all these like smaller things to make sure that, again, that it's the judges. You can manage the workload because you don't want to give them too many, because you've got these tasting notes that need to be written, and the feedback, how things can be improved. And then also, as I say, making sure that the spirits are judged as fairly as possible.
Eric, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I would say one of the sort of purposes that we have really behind this is we want to be as transparent as possible as we can be with entrants about what's happening, and so that they understand, they have confidence in the results that they're getting from us. And so we do a lot of work that most other competitions just don't put in, because it takes time, and time is money, and labor, and all of that. And so there, like I said, there are lots of really good competitions that David and I judge for separately, that the stewards are nice people. They might be a server, a restaurant server, or a bartender or something, but all they've done is they know this is the order. They don't know why it's in that order. They've never tasted any of them. They have no information about any of them, and they bring them out, and that's it. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes you run into things like David mentioned, where there's something like a whiskey that's heavily smoked. Nothing on the label says anything about smoke, and you won't know until you taste it. And you find out later, like, oh, well, this really shouldn't be at the beginning of a flight, because now all I'm tasting is this like intense, like, brimstone flavor, as an example. So we go through that extra step because we want the entries to be tasted in a very particular order, and so that each individual sample can get as much attention and focus from our judges as they can. So we do other things, like we limit generally how many spirits the judges will taste in a day. We try to keep it under a certain threshold to preserve people's palates, so that by the time they get to the end of either before lunch or before the end of the day, they are still kind of at the top of their game, so that they can give adequate feedback. So I would say, again, these are questions like, if you want to know if a competition is taking your product seriously, and you ask them how many spirits are judges tasting in a day, and they're either not willing to give you that answer, or they're telling you, they're in, potentially over 100 in a day, like, then you're gonna like, okay, well, and if again, nobody else tastes entries before they go out like ADI does. So, that's just another layer that we put on top to make sure that everything's in its right place. You have no idea necessarily that your product's going to be in the right place, generally, probably. But there's not a real guarantee of that. So I think that again, we like to talk about these things. And one of the things that we don't necessarily share on our website, like all the information about how we sort things, how we taste things, all of that's available online in our protocols resource that's available free for download. It's there, publicly available. But one of the other things that David and I do regularly is that we will test, like, hypotheses of, like, how can we make this process better? Does it make a difference if these spirits are tasted in this way versus this other way? Because we're always interested to see, the best results possible for a product. And because we are always thinking about, how best to present spirits to our judges so that they're evaluated fairly, we are open to the unusual experiments that craft distillers come up with. Because, if you just send a product to a competition and it's a little bit weird, or maybe it's a little bit unusual, it's not in a well-defined category, sometimes they don't know what to do with it, and it kind of goes into this catch-all bin, and the judges have no real context for it. Whereas, if you send us something that's a little bit unusual, and you tell us, through the entry form, like, hey, this is sort of our intention with this, maybe it doesn't have an exact category, or maybe it's on the fringe of a category, we are totally open to kind of evaluating, like, do we need to do something different with this to present it in its best light? We've had, like, from this 2025 competition, we had a whole new flight that we called botanical rum, because they were basically rums made through the distillation or direct maceration of botanicals. And they weren't a traditional spiced rum, and they weren't really flavored rum, because they weren't sweetened, which is sort of the expectation with a lot of flavored rums. And so we're like, okay, well, we're going to put this group of spirits where they're doing something slightly different. We're going to put them into a new different flight, and we'll create some context for them, and then let the judges evaluate the quality. Because then they can have this they can go through it well and be like, okay, well, I'm not expecting flavored sweetened rum. I'm not expecting a spiced rum. It's this other thing. And we'll give, if it's on the label, we will give hints about maybe what the predominant flavor is supposed to be, so they kind of have an idea of what they should be expecting. And, like, because if you're saying it's, like, say, a coconut flavored rum, but it doesn't taste like coconut, then they should know that. And you want to get that feedback as well. But if you say, like, okay, this is coconut, and they're like, yeah, this is coconut, you nailed it, but it doesn't have it's not syrupy sweet. It's got this beautiful lightness to it. Great. Then you get all that feedback, right? So we are always open to getting experiments from people. And this is the thing, sometimes it people run into a wall and just like, no, this did not work, or the judges will be like, this is amazing, right? And part of that is a testament to who we select as judges. I've told this before, but a couple of years ago now, we got a spirit distilled from mare's milk. Nobody in our competition had ever tasted anything distilled from horse milk. But because of the general like quality and expertise in general that they understand how spirits are made, they understand what balance and finesse, and how what are some of the generalized hallmarks of great quality spirits. They were able to taste it with sort of this open mind, and we're like, this really worked. It was really good. Like, we had never had anything like this, but we could tell like the care that they put into it, the distillation process, it really worked, and they succeeded, and it got great marks. So we are always open to, new pushing boundaries. We are often, if we see a trend in the industry where new categories are developing, we will, create those way before any other competition does. I mean, we were the first to add categories for things like contemporary gin, whereas before you only had like London gin or sweetened, flavored gin, and anything that didn't quite fit into this narrow category or perception of like what we would call classic gin, which is very juniper forward. Some people will refer to these things that are different from that, from like a new American or new Western or whatever. There's all these sort of terms that people have developed. We just call that contemporary. Like, okay, this is a separate style. So it's not meant to be your classic like Beefeater, super juniper forward. This isn't a different kind of thing that people are doing. So we created a different category for that to kind of honor and recognize expertise in crafting this new style. We were also the first competition to create an award category for American single malt, because it was evident that that was something that was very different than traditional American malt whiskey, right? That's 51% malt and other grains. And this is like, okay, it was obvious, like there wasn't a legal category yet. TTB hadn't recognized it yet, but like, this is obviously something that is happening in the world of distillers. And so we're going to create that as a separate group, a different category, so that we can start to build context for this category. And so it's not just the individual spirits that are doing well, but like people start to understand like, oh, this is a new thing that's happening in the world of spirits. So we're always trying to push those boundaries and make sure that our competition is always on sort of the cusp of what's happening in the industry.
And quite often you see that cusp because of the things that have entered. And like, it's also things like for anything that's like, canned RTDs or seltzers and all that stuff, we always want to make sure that they're served nice and cold. We make sure that the flights are not too big, because obviously you don't want to lose the fears. And I think I guess this is the advantage of our stewards having this technical knowledge, is they know, oh, I remember one time when I was judging X, Y, and Z, and all the fizz had gone out of the canned gin and tonics, and so none of them were very good, or something like that. And it's you can kind of spot the pitfalls and try and resolve them as much as possible.
I realize this is an oversimplification, but when I hear you guys talk about the careful curation of the stewards, the judges, and the process in general, it kind of reminds me of, like the difference between like a seasoned cocktail bartender and a hotel banquet bartender. I mean, I'm not meaning no disrespect to hotel banquet bar, but you know what I mean. You get it. Both of them make an old fashioned, but one of them is going to be the details and the nuances, and just the road testedness of one is significantly more than the other. And so that's when I hear you guys talking about it, that's kind of what makes me think
Yeah,
of that.
I agree.
know?
Like they're both old fashions, but the
Yeah.
quality of the one from the seasoned bartender, the balance that you're going to get out of it, it's going to be a little bit superior experience.
Yeah, in most cases, one of them can see around corners that the other one can't, right? Just from the experience. Okay, so I want to open it up for any questions that the attendees have, and I also want to open it up to you guys first before we get to some Q&A. Is there anything important to cover that we didn't manage to touch on? David, I think you had
Eric,
something
did
you
you
want
want
to
to
talk
talk
about.
about our new initiative, The Perfect Pour?
Yeah, so one of the things that we added for our 2025 competition is our new group of awards that we're calling our Perfect Pour Awards. So obviously, all competitions will have awards for whiskey and gin and vodka, and we do as well. And, we have specific categories that all of these things go into. But one of the things that we recognize is that sometimes like a gin, like getting a gold medal, maybe it passes through to the consumer and they're like, okay, this is a good gin, but am I going to like it? I'm a real gin and tonic drinker, or I'm a real martini drinker. Or I really like Negronis. Like, is it going to really work in that? I don't know. And so we came up with this idea of basically taking entries from the competition and having a process where we select a small subset of them and then test them in cocktails. And then they go through this process of basically judging as a cocktail. So say like for the Negroni, we use equal parts. So the only thing that would change is the gin. So it's the same Campari, it's the same vermouth, and then the gin would be different. And so we had about 8 different Negronis that we made with different gins that our judges were like, we think this could do really well as a Negroni. Again, this is like we are piggybacking on the expertise and the knowledge of our judges. And the great thing that came out of this is that a couple of our winners that ended up winning our trophies for, I don't remember specifically which one it was. I think I don't want to speak out of turn, but it was I think it was one of the vodka perfect pour winners and one of the gin perfect pour winners. They didn't get great, like they didn't get top medals in terms of gold or double gold. They got maybe a bronze or silver, but our judges were like, there's something here that I think could work really well in a cocktail. So maybe it's not a perfect spirit in of itself on its own, but in the context of a cocktail, I think it's going to do really well. And so they passed it through, and in this a couple of these instances, they ended up winning the trophy for, best. I think it was best vodka martini and best gin
Best,
martini.
best gin martini, best vodka martini, and best Negroni. And we're
Yeah.
going to open it up to, well, a whiskey one this year, I think, aren't we? I think we're still working on it. We're still working on
Yeah.
it. But this is something that's done in so this isn't like, it's not an extra like fee or anything. This is
Right.
something it's just another opportunity to be recognized, but be recognized in a slightly different way. And I guess one of the other things that we've not mentioned, which also doesn't have an additional fee, unlike many competitions, is that every spirit that enters gets entered into the packaging competition as well. So that's another place where if you've got a really great new redesign or just a great design, you can really shine there. And that's all just it's one fee to enter, and then these other things um, come off from there.
Well, again, anybody of our attendees, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A. We've got one already. And the question is that in spite of winning several medals, they're still struggling to find the right distributor partner. And they say, how can I identify the proper distributor to help us grow proof of concept, from the proof of concept stage to the incubation phase, and then to owning their market, specifically California. I, I, I I'll go first and say I'm not sure that that is an awards based question. That sounds like more of connecting with the right distributor question, but I'll let you guys speak to that. But Stephen, I would tell you that based around awards, who to whom that matters or it doesn't, or finding a good distributor in general, I've always thought one of the best ways to find a great distributor is talk to some retailers. They will tell you who they think is a good fit for your brand based on who takes care of them, who shows up on time, who the good sales reps are. I mean, by the way, be prepared during this conversation to hear about all of the distributors that don't do any of that, and then they'll eventually get around to telling you who they think is a good fit. But I would kind of start there, just in general. But maybe you guys have some thoughts about maybe how to use the award to find the right distributor, if you've got any experience with that. How do you identify a distributor to whom those wins might mean something, as opposed to somebody that would not pay attention?
Just very, very briefly on my limited knowledge, and hello to Stephen, and enjoy your orangello. Very nice. What in my experience of what I've heard from other people is that it's the things like the trophies, and also there are like other things that distilleries can enter where they're not necessarily so much taste based. So like ADI, we have like our Green Initiative Awards, and there are other ones as well. Some of those things help. Um, when you're with looking at distributors, but it doesn't necessarily help you find them, but it certainly helps to kind of get that second look with them. And I know a few people I've spoken to in other things and actually in different competitions, but when they've won the trophy, they're like, the trophy's more important for those imported distributor relationships, or like a producer of the year or something like that, than potentially about, in some cases, just selling lots of more product. But so those things are definitely things to look at. But that's just something that can strengthen your case as opposed to helping you find it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so I mean, our approach has been is for our trophy winners is to help make introductions to distributors. So we offer quite a few now. But whether they're going to be a good fit for you is part of the conversation process that you have with them, and what they're looking for and what you're looking for. And I know if you take a meeting with Southern, which is one of our distribution partners that's willing to meet with our winners, like, you have to know going in, they're going to expect you to spend a lot of money in terms of marketing your own product, and in terms of like on the order of millions of dollars a year. So if you're not in that space, then that maybe the Southern is not the right distributor for you, right? But if maybe it's one of the other ones that you end up meeting with that's going to be able to work with you where you're at, where you're ready to grow, whether you have the capacity to reach a national market, or if you're just trying to grow in a more regional, in the regional market. So those are sorts of things you have to think about when you're meeting with the distributors, like what their footprint is and what they're trying to accomplish as well. So in order to find that right fit. So I don't know that there's necessarily there's obviously not a one size fits all. But part of that is we create this like whole breadth of distributors that are willing to meet with you, so you can have those conversations. Because initially, like, sometimes it's just difficult to have the conversation, and so we try to open those doors to just make it easier to have those conversations. And then you can figure out, is this company the right fit for us? Is this one? Is it the fourth one? And I agree with what John said, that yeah, talking with, especially in your local market, like, who do people like working with? Sometimes you don't have a lot of options, and that can be challenging. But if people really enjoy working with a particular company or with a particular rep, then I think it's worth considering, like, okay, maybe this is the direction that I need to go. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I'll only add to this, specific to California, maybe. I think this concept plays everywhere, but particularly I would imagine in California, since the number rating on wine is such an accepted part of that buying and selling culture. Maybe maybe a wine distributor with a smaller spirits portfolio, to them an award, even though ours is not a number rating, but an award might get their attention because they're just dialed in to, high number ratings on wine. That might not be the worst approach to at least fold into your strategy, is to find a wine house that has a funky but healthy little spirits portfolio.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, particularly in California, we're seeing there's sort of a broadening of the distribution sort of options. There's, now traditional beer distributors that are, taking on spirits brands and as well as, traditional wine distributors. So, if you're in an area where you have not just other distillers, but maybe other breweries or wineries in your region, that talk to them as well and see who do they like, and if those people have opportunities for a spirits portfolio. So
Yeah. Well, I don't see any other questions in, and that's about an hour. So, fellas, Eric, David, thank you so much for talking all this through with me, and good to see you guys.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank
And
you for joining, everyone.
thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you next time.